KyShawn George, NBA Draft Scouting Report. This is a player that was a fun player to watch in college for his one season at Miami, even though his team was not very fun to watch. But he showed moments of brilliance. You can clearly see the upside. He's a very big guard, scoring guard who has already kind of, I think, gotten better in the last year, but maybe not shown in like a role that needed him to be relied upon every single minute. So it's a lot of questions on like what would it look like if he was given that opportunity. This is a guy some people wanted to see come back to college, and instead he's like, nope, I'm a professional. Let's just see where it goes. And he's certainly going to get taken in the draft. So Brian, let's just start with a general overview. What do you make of KyShawn George, the player?
There is a lot of potential there because you have a guy who's 6'7", 6'8", can handle the ball, shoot the three, create for himself off the bounce. He has shown some high level playmaking ability in flashes. Obviously, the size and foot speed gives you some defensive upside. He's not an overwhelming athlete by any means. He's more, I think, smooth and fluid than explosive, but we've seen plenty of guys who have a significant impact in the NBA without elite athleticism, just with high level skill. And the hope is that George can become that because he has shown a package that can be that.
Yes, I completely agree. I think it's one of those ones that's so unpredictable to me. It's just like we're gonna sit here and try to predict. That's the whole purpose of this exercise. But
Yeah.
it's one of those ones that nothing would surprise me. Like if he becomes an NBA star, wouldn't surprise me. He has the tools. If he becomes a total bust and can never crack a rotation, wouldn't surprise me. He's never put it together. So let's get into our categories. What is one word to describe KyShawn George?
Hopeful. Because I think if you draft him, you are hopeful that the tools work out. And that's why some, including myself, I think would have liked to have seen him come back to college for another year. Not from a, he's gonna get drafted. He's gonna make a significant amount of money. I'm not gonna tell anybody to turn that down. But from a purely on court perspective, it would have been nice to see him in a position where he had to handle a bigger role and see if there's actually some development there that actually took place, or if it's still just a hope that he develops and puts all those tools together on a more consistent basis. So for me, I had hopeful.
I like hopeful. I'm also hopeful. I might co-opt your word there. I went with raw. Um,
Yeah.
I I think he's raw. I just think he's raw. I think he is like completely unbaked as a basketball player, and it's like, oh, this looks like it'll taste great in a couple of years. And maybe it will. Put it in the oven and see what happens. I don't know. I do believe in the talent. There's clear talent. He can do things with the basketball that a player his size shouldn't be able to do. It's
Mhm.
just he hasn't been asked to do it in a starter role at all, and we have no idea what that means. Is he more likely to hit his floor or his ceiling in the NBA?
I have more likely to hit his floor in part because I think his ceiling is so high, right? Like I think if he does put it all together, there is a star in there. There is a top two or three guy on a playoff team in there if he puts it all together. I don't know if he's going to put that all together. That's a big ask and a lot of projecting out to that standpoint. Because of that, I think it's more likely he hits his floor.
I am going ceiling. I think I don't have a good reason for this other than just I believe in the talent. Like I think he doesn't need to have shown production yet for him to like have enough stuff to be given an opportunity in the NBA that he hasn't been given in college yet. And Miami was a disaster in all ways. Like it's hard for me to pinpoint who was the reason Miami had all these issues last year, but I don't think it was KyShawn's fault. So I'm willing to be optimistic about him. I believe he's one of the more talented players in this draft. And for where he's going to get drafted, I think he's probably one of the better values, just pure talent that's going to be selected in this year's draft. Best team fit. Where would be a good spot for KyShawn George?
So him going in the back half of the first round makes this tough. I think a situation like the Wizards where he has a chance to, I think, play through and get some real game reps and development could be big. But I also think a team like the Bucks could be important because he's a guy who has good size. That's something the Bucks value. He's a good shooter, something the Bucks value as well. And he'll have some guys to learn from, obviously ahead of him in that rotation, some vets that can help mentor him. So I put the Bucks down.
I like that. I have another playoff ready team. I went with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think he would benefit from going to a team that has a star in the backcourt because I don't want KyShawn to be asked to need to be that guy. I want him to be a guy that gets to play off of another guy that's great with the ball in his hands. So you throw him on Minnesota, a team where there have been some other tall-ish guards that have learned to create for themselves in ways they might not have been asked to do when they had to play point guard in college. And now you're a 3-and-D guy and you mold yourself into these other skill sets. To me, KyShawn needs to learn that more than he needs to learn how to be an NBA superstar. He needs to learn how to be a role player. I think Minnesota would allow him to do that. What is his peak year, his very best season in the NBA? What do the numbers look like?
This goes into me thinking he's closer to his floor than his ceiling. I think it's something like 7-8 points per game. I don't think there's a ton in there for him, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. It gets harder as we go down this list. I'm going a little opposite than you. I think there will be at least one really good season. And it may not be on a good team, but I believe the skill stuff is there. I went 13 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 40% from 3. That's not NBA All-Star, but it's very good, very versatile starter. At least one season in the year, I think that happens. In 5 years, where is he? Your options are All-NBA, All-Star starter, bench, G League, overseas, or podcaster.
It would not shock me if he's a bench guy and contributing. It wouldn't really surprise me that much if he's a starter somewhere. But I think the most likely outcome is that he's in the G League and bouncing maybe up and down between G League and bench. When you draft guys based off of, let's say, potential and skill, but they haven't necessarily put it all together yet, but have shown it, but didn't dominate in college, it's much more likely those guys don't put it together in the NBA and don't pan out than they suddenly do when something clicks.
Yeah.
And I know George is a bit of a late bloomer, so there may be a special circumstance there. But I do have hesitancy of the fact that I watched a number of Miami games last year, and you saw the things that he could do, but I never once thought he was the best player on the court. I never once thought he was really dominant. And that kind of scares me.
Yeah. I think it should. Like, I think it's totally fair, warranted criticism, like, especially on a team that was so bad. If he is this talent upside, you would have liked him to like force his way on the floor a little more.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going bench. I think it's one of those ones where, like, if he did stay in college, I almost would have liked him to transfer. Like, let's just see a fresh start from you. And now he gets a fresh start. There's 30 teams that may give him a chance that maybe he didn't get the chance in Miami. Okay, most likely to NBA draft superlatives, KyShawn George edition. He's the most likely player in the draft to do what?
This is one of my favorite ones, and there's multiple facets of this. I think he's most likely to be the next Jeff Green, from the standpoint of Jeff Green was around forever. And you're like, wait, he's only like 23, 24? I feel like he's been in the league forever. KyShawn George, I think, has that potential because he's very, very young. There's also the point where you're like, oh, Jeff Green's still in the league? And you look it up, and he's been on like 15 teams the last 6 years. I think we could see a career trajectory like that where you're like, oh, he's still around. And the first half of Jeff Green's career was very much like, if we just get him in the right situation, we can unlock everything that Jeff Green can be. I think there's going to be similar conversations had about KyShawn George.
The guy that just leaves you wanting more and also never ages. Yeah, I could see that. Okay. He is the most likely player in this draft to play a different position a decade into his career. Like, he spends 10 years trying to be a guard, and then he molds himself into like a stretch 4 for a couple seasons when he has no athleticism left.
You know what? Boris Diaw came into the league as a point guard and then put the weight on, became a 4. I could. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Just like, hey, it's not working here. Let me try this. And he gains 100 pounds. It could work. Okay. If you like this video, we have 74 more of these leading up to the NBA draft over on the channel. Go check them out. The NBA draft is coming up, and I've got something awesome for you. We are partnering with the people at NBA 2K Lab. NBA 2K is the best video game on earth. The people at 2K Lab are making some awesome stuff to make that game even more fun, and they just launched their 2024 NBA Draft Simulator, where you can find the official Sleepers Media big board. We ranked our top 75 players in this draft class. Me, Carter, Brian Ralph, Riley Davis. We did it together, and it is featured on the 2K Lab NBA Draft Simulator. You can take control of any team in the draft, play GM with just one click, and see our entire rankings before these videos even come out. Check out the link in the description of this video to try out the draft sim for yourself, and you can find more mini games at nba2klab.com/nba-mini-games.